Next question we have is, do you count? I'm not giving you the answer. The answer is given by Sunder Madakshira, Vice President Marketing and Global Corporate Affairs, SAP. Sundar's passion is generating and executing ideas which give disproportionate leverage in the market. For the past 19 years, he has worked and learned from path breakers and game changers in communication to customers, talent pool, and other corporate stakeholders. His areas of focus at SAP are and is brand management, building influencer relations, PR, employee engagement, and customer evangelism. He has held leadership roles in the sales and marketing functions for the last 18 years in Unilever, Infosys, and Wipro before his current role. He has spoken at many industry and academic forums, including at CII, NASCOM, IIM Bangalore, and IIM Calcutta on the topics of interest in marketing. Sundar, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I know it's afternoon. Come on.
Sundar.
Yeah,
that's very interesting to say, do you count? But I'm not going to be giving you the answers. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. So I believe that I'm in midst of all of you, and this is our community. So I will take the liberty of being a little provocative today. So if you find me a little sarcastic or cynical, it's only to provoke us, all of us, to think differently and really answer very quickly. This is a question that we all have to answer for ourselves, which is, do you count or do we count in our organizations, right? When we started the NASCOM, Marcom discussions, we decided to focus on 3 areas, and that's what you will hear from my friends about. And one of the work streams that we identified was, how do you make Marcom really strategic, right? And it's coming from a very deep itch, and I will speak about it as we go along. I don't think I need to talk to you about whether communication is important or not. I don't think any of us has that question in their mind, except that I think the many studies which have proven that individuals and organizations which communicate better do a much better job of succeeding in the marketplace than the others. I think those of you who've seen the Economic Times today, right on top was a telling testimony of what communications can do. There was a piece of statistic about Apple, about $178 billion in cash. That's enough to buy TCS, ONGC, and Reliance Industries by cash, in cash payment. That's the amount of wealth that's been created. And while we all believe that Apple has been a fantastic innovation company, we also know very deeply that there's a very huge play in the way it has communicated to the rest of the world. An iPod, to me, fundamentally, is nothing but a hard disk with an intelligent UI. But somebody like Steve Jobs has to hold it in his hand, very tall, and say that this is an iPod. And the whole world says, wow, and is able to charge a 500% premium on that. I think there is a huge power of communication, right? And communication, I think, as we all know, is very ubiquitous, which is why it becomes very difficult to communicate as well. But this discussion that I thought I should probably share some of my own angst, my own irritations, my own frustrations and being in this function. At the same time, some of the triumphs that we've all seen as a function, right? So it's really to think and get everybody thinking on how Marcom can play a very critical role. Now I understand that there is a great amount of heterogeneity in this room, right? The people performing different kinds of marketing and communications function. Not everything is going to be equal. So some of it is going to be more applicable to you. Some of it might, you're free to completely differ and say, look, that's not the way it is in my organization. I've really kept it, I want to keep it interactive, which is another way of saying I'm not prepared enough for the session. But that's the only way we'll keep it going, because I think I'm in midst of friends. The first indication when I say, do you count, and does the marketing and the communication function actually count for your organization, is to ask yourself a question. Is your chief marketing officer of your organization, you may have called him something else, but is he on the board of your company? Is he on the board of your company, right? If he isn't, it's something for you to think about why he isn't. And if he is, I think it's an equally important question for you to answer as to why do you think he is. And I think the very, very vital lessons for all of us, just in case he's made it to the board, to think about why did he get there, because that's what I think I will try and unravel in my own mind and in front of you as to why he got there. But here is a telling piece of statistic which I want to share with you. Till 1972, ironically the year I was born, I brought bad luck to marketing actually. Till that year, all CEOs were former CMOs. This is a HBR study. And from 1972 onwards, all CEOs, majority of them have been CFOs. And why is that? If you see what's been happening in management and leadership as business leadership, it's all focused on cost, right? You look at the quality movement, you look at the business process re-engineering movement, you look at the outsourcing movement which has started, all that focuses on what? Reducing costs. And who best other than your CFO to drive it if that is what your company actually does, right? The focus therefore to a large extent has moved away from innovation, business modeling, re-business modeling, etc., and moved to the area of cost reduction. Now, has it come down to zero? Thankfully not, but it's come down from somewhere around 80% to 23%. That's a huge dip. Are you a part of the strategy meetings? Do you communicate your mission, vision of your company? That's a question again we need to ask ourselves. What is the role that you play in your organization? If your business, you all manage some business, right? All of you are aligned to certain businesses, certain verticals, certain areas within your organization, or you might be even working at the corporate level where you handle it for the. Are you called in for your strategy meetings of your company? Yes or no? How many of you are called for strategy meetings? That's good. At what stage? In the beginning, in the middle, or towards the end? How many of you are there right from day one? Okay, so that's a fewer hands going up. And at the end, how many of you are there at the strategy meetings? At the end, towards the end. Yeah, but people who were there would have also been till the end. Or did you disappear in between? Right? How many of you were ever called into strategy at all? A lot of people, and sorry? Yeah, how many of you were involved in strategy discussions at all? Before, after, during? Never.
There should be a lot more, right?
There should be a lot more, that's what I'm saying. It should be cumulative of everybody who raised their hand so far. How can it be? Anybody who has got anything to do with strategy communication of your company, raise their hands. Yeah, so that I think is a bigger set. But a lot of people are not raising their hands. And that's not coming as a surprise, because when we were discussing this came out repeatedly as to why we are not a part of these strategy meetings. Now, if you are not a part of these strategy meetings, how effective will you be communicating it? Because there's a whole lot of science and art in the field of communication which start right from the beginning. You know, look at how a product team's structured. Product teams are structured, and it's a complete team only when you have somebody from marketing and the communications function in them, right from the time that the product roadmap and the architecture has actually been drawn up. And that's when we've seen it to be very, very effective. And that's our experience even in SAP. SAP went into a new product called SAP HANA, as probably you would have heard. And one of the things that we did differently from what we have done in the past is that we co-located the entire product development team and the marketing and communications teams together. They were always together. They were not sitting centrally in their own function, but with the product teams. And that's made it that's made a world of difference, because the speed that we've been able to get, the accuracy of communication that we've been able to get is fantastic. You know, I recently, I always make it a point to ask anybody I meet, which is the book that they've been reading. So I once asked our CEO, Bill McDermott, when I met him once, and I asked him which is the book he's reading. And surprisingly, he said he's reading a book called The Counselor. If you get a chance to read it, you should. It's called The Counselor. It's written by a person, I can't get his name immediately. He used to be the communications person for John F. Kennedy. And that is where he brings out the beauty of what communications can do to an entire world. There are fantastic stories there about how he actually was able to speak to Kennedy and the Russian president at the same time. And those were not days of emails, and phone calls were not really the protocol. So if you have to fight the world war, you have to actually write a letter and then fight the world war, right? And when you write something like, okay, let's fight the world war, you better get your full stop, comma, colon and all that absolutely right. And the worst challenge was, you are America and you got to communicate to the Russians who don't understand English. So can you imagine the challenge of writing that letter which John F. Kennedy ultimately wrote to the Russian president? But to me, I think that is, so I read that book, and I happened to meet Bill later, a year later, and I said, look, I read that book. What are the lessons that you really learned? So he said, why don't you talk to my communication guy? You just look at that. If you look at, so I spoke to his communications person. I said, look, Bill was talking to me about this book. What's so great? I mean, I read this book. What were your learnings? So he said, look, did you see how important it is for the leadership and communication to be alive, right? So that's the second question that I would like to leave you with. If you're not a part of these strategy meetings, probably it's a good time to ask yourself this question: do you count? So I'll keep coming back to that question: do you count? Okay. Do you serve the itch of the CEO? Okay. Here it is. See, every CEO has got 2 or 3 things that he wants to do, right? He always wants to do 2 or 3 things. He doesn't want to do too many things. And if you are able to play a role in those 3 strategic goals, then you become strategic. Now when I talk about the CEO, it's not just the CEO, but it's anybody in the leadership position. If you have a business head and he's got 3 things that he wants to do, how can you help him achieve those 3 goals? If he's not calling you for the strategy meeting that we just spoke about, it's probably because you're not responding to those 3 things that he wants you to do. Some leaders are very good at communicating that to you, saying, look, hey, you know what, here are 3 things I want you to do. 1, 2, 3. Right? And the moment you say 1, 2, 3, the best thing is people start taking down. Right? And that becomes very specific. You can track how you're doing against it. But remember, most people aren't good at telling you these things. Most people aren't good at telling you these things, right? Once my managing director of my company asked me this question. We were in a press conference. He said, hey, you know what? Every leader is very clear in his mind what is the headline that he wants to give. He wants to give a headline to the press when he's doing a press interview. But why doesn't the person go there very confidently, very clearly say, here is the headline I want to give you? He's always hesitating. He always wants to, hint in that direction. And ultimately what happens is the journalist writes what he wants to. Okay? Now that is a problem with leadership communication, right? I can see a lot of people nodding their heads. That's because you are not aligned completely with the people that whose messages you actually take it out. Now this could be a CEO, it could be a product leader, or any source of information that you actually are responsible for communication to the rest of the world. Okay? What are the typical tasks that you are called to perform? In your organization, it's important for you to see what are you called in for, right? The other day somebody came and said, you know what, I want you to print this brochure. I said, I'm not a printer. If you want, we can connect you to some good printer. They will print it for you. Okay, we had a designer. We had a very good designer in my previous organization. And he would set a very good visualizer, very good person to convert that into any form of design. What somebody would come and do, so we had a person who was heading at the telecom vertical in that company. So he said, see, I want you to show, what's called cloud computing. Okay, cloud computing. So how does cloud computing work? Those were little early days in cloud, where people actually thought that the server is somewhere there. Even now I see, it's, people say, see, you don't have to spend all that is in the cloud.
They look up.
So everybody looks up, looking in the cloud. Even in a closed auditorium, people actually look up, right? So anyway, those were days when people actually thought it was. Many people still do. And he said, look, what you have to do? You draw a tower like this, okay? And then check. And he was doing all this. And after some time, the guy came back. He said, sir, is this the design you want? So this guy looked at it and said, yeah, but where is your value add? He said, you wanted me to draw this, right? You wanted me to design it like this, so I've done it. So I was unfortunately the witness to the whole thing. And I said, I spoke to this head of business and I said, why are you telling him what he is supposed to do? He knows his task. He knows what is to be done. Tell him what the visual should look like from the perception of what is the message that you want to give. He's a designer, so he can draw a tower, he can draw a cloud, all that he knows, right? I'm just giving you one example of the typical type of task that many of us are forced to perform. And that's not what we are meant to do. We're not meant to do, cloud computing, right? How are budgets allocated in your organization? Okay, let me put it the other way. How are budgets deallocated from the organization? So whenever there's a budget cut, any organization, the first guys to suffer are the training guys. The guys who do training, they are in the beginning of the year, when the budgets have just arrived, they have this hapless look on their face because the budget is already cut. Even before and they're wondering that we anyway didn't have budget. How did they cut something which was not there? And they're very, very depressed lot, and they're very depressing lot as well. They managed to somehow depress people. But the good thing about training people is they are able to cheer Marcom people up because they are next in line. So in your organization, if people say, look, there is a 40% blanket cut, right? And in your organization, and which is Marcom function, if that 40% is taken as a blanket, then I think that tells you something about what people believe is a value that you're adding to the organization.
And a 100% travel cut as well.
100% travel cut, right? So all these things are symptoms of how your organization views your function. Now, shouldn't marketing as a function participate in any cost reduction program? Surely they should. But there should be a manner of doing it rather than just saying 40% cut. Because if that was the case, you can also go back to your business and show him, look, these are the line items, I've cut 40% everywhere. But now does that make sense? Does it make sense any longer? Because now you're responsible to be the custodians of the brand with that kind of an approach, right? How is your performance measured and communicated? How many of you have quantitative KPIs to your role? Quantitative, measurable. Numbers, yes. So roughly 10%. Sorry, that was 13.7%. Yeah. Yeah? What about the others? What kind of goals do you have? Very perception based. Right.
Yep.
Now that's a problem.
Correct.
That's a big problem because you will never be able to communicate your performance. You see the problem? The whole world, and many times you would have to deal with people who only understand numbers. Right? And what would such people do? If it's only perception based, where's the problem? Unless you are a rock star and you get your CEO on the front page of Times, at least 6 times a year, perception about you is bad. Like it's very easy. How many times have I heard people coming and telling me, hey, you know what, Sunita, hey, dekho, this fellow used to be my batchmate.
Correct.
He is on business today. How can he be on business today? This company, I'll tell you, Sunita, listen to me, don't laugh. This fellow here is right like this. He used to be a fail ho gaya tha. Now what am I supposed to do? So how do you, and what we do, and I've seen this again, is marketing also communicates its performance. When I'm saying marketing, it's Marcom as such. It's also communicating it in its own metrics. Right? All these things that we use to measure our performance in marketing is not understood. So there are only two ways. Either you make people understand, or you get a way to compare it with somebody else and say, look, we are better than them. Then everybody is happy. Right? But it's important for you to understand how are you communicating your performance. So we are the communication function, right? And how good a job do we do of communicating our own work? How many of you think you do a fabulous job of communicating your performance to your organization? Everybody in your company knows what you do and they're very appreciative of you. I believe that all of you are doing a great job. Assuming that, how many of you will say you do a good job of communicating your performance? Mumukshu, either you have a hand or you don't. Good, I changed it. Okay, let's take out the adjectives. How many of you communicate your performance? Yeah? See, that's again less than 20%. That's again less than 20%. So it's an opportunity for all of us to find out how we set our goals, explain to others why we are setting those goals, and communicate it against those goals. Our job will be better. Will it be better in year 1? Probably not. But in year 2, people will start understanding. Right? Look at HR. Anybody from HR here?
No.
Oh, you too. Okay. I was about to say something, but it's okay. I was just saying that HR is a very strategic function. That's what I wanted to say. These guys have actually figured it out pretty well. They come up with these nice looking graphs about attrition and total cost of hire and all sort of fancy stuff, but they somehow are able to do a better job. We got to get smarter, right? Okay.
No, he's good.
See, this is the itch and the frustration. Sorry, am I blocking you?
Sorry. No.
Yeah. See, have you ever seen your CEO of your company going into the CFO's office and saying something like, hey, how do you calculate depreciation, yeah? Last night when I was sleeping, I got this idea, and why don't you just do it like this? Has he ever thought about doing something like this? Has he? A double entry band kar do, triple entry karo, some such radical thought. He will never do it. But when it comes to marketing, everybody and his uncle has a profound view. Everybody and his uncle has a zenith of marketing. Why? Because that's a problem. We should start this. This is a slap on everybody's face, saying there is a function which there is a science and there is an art behind something called marketing. And the day we start this course, we have to tell people, if you don't talk to me till you have taken this course. Because unfortunately, you don't know what I do. Right? But I think it's important. I think it's important that we convey and communicate the art and science of what we do. Okay? So I'll end this first part of what I want to say by this question called, what will happen in your office if you don't show up? If nothing happens, then you have to decide whether you want to go back at all. But that's one way of saying. Okay? Okay. How to be the linchpin? All of you know what the linchpin is, right? That's the linchpin. In a cart, there is something called a linchpin. There's a book by Seth Godin called The Linchpin. It's a beautiful book. If you happen to read it, if you get a chance to read it, you should. It's written on this topic of what is called a linchpin. In a cart, we believe that the whole weight of a bullock cart is taken by the wooden wheels. But actually the weight keeps falling on a small pin which keeps it in its place. And that's what makes it going. So how do you become indispensable to your organization, being in the marketing and communication function? That's what I thought I'll share some. To me, I think the marketing function, you are the custodians of the brand. We here own the brand that we are supposed to be working for. How are you the custodian, and are you good at telling a story about your brand? Take my word, less than 0.001% of your organization knows how to tell the story of your organization. Less than that. They don't know how to tell the story of your company. You can take the lead of telling that story. Okay? I recently visited one of our partner organizations, and I asked them why, both the two people escorting me, two people very senior, one very proudly displaying, I've completed 15 years in the organization, another person completed 10 years in the organization, right? And what these two guys were doing, when they took me around, I said, why is your company called Pentagon Software? Anyway, that's not the name of the company. Why is it called Pentagon Software? These guys looked back and said, look, we don't know. So I said, who knows? They said, we don't know. So I met the CEO of the company and I said, why is your company called Pentagon Software? They said, we don't know. It's got to do, I think there were some 5 things that I know, because a pentagon has 5 edges. I also did my engineering sometime, but don't tell me that you don't know. So, but long story short, I think it's a great opportunity for you to tell the story of your organization. If you don't know, if a company for whatever reason doesn't have, I think it's a great time to build it right now. And you be the custodian of how you can present your products, your solutions. And when I say story, it's not just the history, but about how your company's evolved, but more importantly, what is your product portfolio? Can somebody tell, can you be the custodian? Thereby, you become the very strategic partner in any kind of communication, because all communication, guys, is in your laptop. All that your company communicates is in your laptop before it goes to any other format. For example, our corporate communications team does all the work that we do with the press, with the analysts, with the customers, with the employees. So they are really the custodians of everything that they have. Now they have a great opportunity to build that into a story. So if you want to take that, I think it's a great opportunity, and you will be looked at as a partner of choice. Do you talk customers? Do you talk to customers at all? How many of you talk to customers in the marketing function, right? For some reason, I think we are stuck with this 10%, right? It's still 10%. How many, whatever work you do, how much of that is aligned to sales? For example, there is a press conference, there's a press release, there's a press appearance of your CEO or any of your business leaders. Does it find its way to the sales kit at all? It's a very important testimonial. It's a third party which is giving a view about what your company does. Don't you think it should be a part of your sales kit? But how many of us make an attempt? If you have not done it, if you've done it, it's great. But if you have not done it, I think there's a great opportunity.
Good point.
Okay? You are the voice of the customer. Many of us probably don't get this opportunity. In SAP, we do, because of the way we are structured, where we have something called the Executive Briefing Center, where all the customers actually come. So for a good amount of time, we were seen as people who can suggest wonderful menus and serve masala chai flawlessly. And everybody would come back and say, your team did an excellent job. The mint chutney. Oh, okay, thank you. That made me feel really good. But then we said, look, we are having 300 customers come to our lab every year. Is there a way we can consolidate that into the voice of the customer? We started on that journey, but someday I think if we're able to do it well, we will become very strategic, because If the board of the company wants to know what our customers saying, here are 300 visits, and we ought to, you can say, look, we are the voice of the customer. And I've seen this, and that's done very well by by FMCG organizations, where marketing is really the voice of the customer, because they have the custody of all the market research which is done on their category. Of course, I've spoken about sales kit. The other question for me to ask you is, we sometimes are not very good at innovation, because we believe innovation is all about new products, and we don't have anything to do with it. Yes, it's definitely, a company does become innovative when it's also, when it brings out the new product. That's what it's paid for. But do we have an opportunity to innovate in communication, in the field of communication itself? I think there is. Adoption of social media, adoption of digital media, adoption of so many other methods are still not in any areas of kind of maturity that we should have ordinarily seen. So there's a great opportunity there. Other thing is, I think you need to tell people you're not spell check. People come and say, I've written something which is basically telling you I've written some shit, I don't know what I've written. And here it is, can you do some, can you do this cleaning up? Housekeeping, they are responsible for cleaning things up. Spell check, you're not spell check. And that is when I think you should learn to say no. It's very important for any function to be able to define what they do and deliver it, right? And then people say, okay, look, I think this is an organization which does, this is a function which delivers value. Anything that is free has no value. So I think one way to be strategic is to start saying, no, this is not what I meant to do. I know it's difficult, it's not in our DNA, but we have to do it. I think that is what this forum is all about. We need to talk to each other. I think amongst all the communities in this world, marketing and communication are the worst networked, at least in India. I don't know what other places.
I agree with you.
The very fact that after so many years, after 25 years of NASSCOM, ironically, we are forming the Marcom panel.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the NASSCOM product forum came up I know that is what NASSCOM is meant to do, but there was a huge opportunity. Every time I have come to this forum, there have been 3 pages of action items that I take for myself. I can show it to you. But the challenge for me is, after 3 pages, I just stop, because I say, hey, come on, how much can I execute? It's all very nice for me to write down, but can I execute? It's been a fantastic, very enriching experience for me to be a part of this forum. We went through a huge PR crisis some time back. And what we did, and what I wanted to speak to some people. Of course, we spoke a lot within the team, but we were all co-sufferers, right?
Yeah.
But when we came out, and I spoke to some members of the forum on MG Road once over breakfast, I tell you that was the most relieving conversation I've ever had, because I understood the crux. I also understood what we had done wrong and what we could have done better. It's not that we were self-certifying.
Sundar, in fact, the HR and finance folks are so well networked that any time there is any crisis, or if they want to have some opinion of the others, they immediately pick up the phone and they keep talking. We get into major crisis with the media and others especially, and we have nobody to talk to except ourselves in front of the mirror.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a very, very valid point.
Yeah, so this forum is precisely meant to do that.
Make it stronger.
Any question that you have, it's not just related to what we are doing today, but you should have the phone number of all your peers in your organization, be able to speak to them. There's so much that you can learn from another context.
Correct.
And the learning is never enough. So this is all I had to share with you, and get some thoughts from what you felt and what you feel about how do you count, and do you want to count?
Very good.
And what do you think are ways that you can make your function count?
Very good.
Yeah, Mumchi. ROI. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I saw him.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaustubh Nande. I head marketing for Answers. Some of you probably know Answers, but not everyone. Anyways, my question, Sundar, is I think you hit the nail on the head on the last slide. I totally agree that you need to say no. But at the same time, I have a counterpoint here that never say no to which you can actually do. That includes giving chai and samosas to actually sitting in strategy meetings, etc. Because then, at the end of the day, you increase your breadth. And I've interned about 12 years ago, serving tea and the samosa to somebody. And believe me, 12 years later, I met the same person at a strategy meeting in a conference. And he said, wow, I'm kind of really, really nice to meet you. So I think those experiences and those conversations that you have are definitely valuable. But at the same time, I think, Sundar, you're absolutely right that saying no is very, very critical. And sometimes you have to juggle. It's a gray area, but you have to use very sound judgment there.
Yeah.
And so, well, anyways, we can talk later. Let me pass on the
Looks
mic
like serving tea is in the vogue.
Chai wala.
Yes.
Hi, Sundar. I'm Mumukshu from Sapient. Sundar, your entire presentation, you actually you started with the premise with do you count, and you answered through all the slides in the presentation, how do we make ourselves count? So you bang on all of them. I just probably wanted to add a couple of things to a couple of them there, especially when you said, how do you get yourself into the board of or how do you get yourself into a strategy meeting? So organizations, and this is again a personal opinion, organizations are structured in different ways sometimes, and not necessary that every organization CMO is sitting on the board of that organization. But even then, it probably does not dilute the importance of the marketing function in that organization. Probably but the point I want to make over here is, how do you make yourself important to the CEO? I feel what makes it absolutely undeniable is you set a couple of goals with that CEO, and those goals could probably be one of those 2-3 points that you said that the CEO has on his agenda. And no one's going to help you set that goal unless you actually go across to the CEO and tell him, this is what I want to do, or is this what you want me to do? And once you've set that goal with him, again, another point that you made, set some parameters of judgment, of measurement. And then kind of track it to closure. It sometimes is a lot of in your face and being rather unwelcome in the corner office, but you probably have to do it just to ensure that you are important in the organization and they understand why you are there. I think that, and I kind of agree with what he says about saying no. Sometimes you just cannot say no. I'm sure a lot of people here in this room will agree. You just cannot say no, but maybe you can reduce the times when you can say no for very unimportant things, and you cannot not say no for the important ones.
Let me qualify that.
Another 2-3 minutes, close the session.
If you see there's absolutely no value add for the other person or for you, then you should definitely say no. That's what I mean. Sorry.
Yeah, conditional again to a lot of circumstances and. Yeah.
See, I think what I'm referring to is, I had our member of the board who was leading the HR function. She once told something which is very, very profound. She said, look, guys, the organization structures are only guidelines. Don't take them too seriously. They're meant to get some kind of a quorum. Yeah. It's not to say that there should be anarchy. There has to be a code of communication, there has to be budget allocation, there has to be some discipline and that's why we put an organization structure. But don't get crippled by it. So when you said that whether somebody is on the board, that's not really the point. The point is, people will always, if you're found to be important in an organization, and that are found it to be, right? There are a lot more people who are actually influencing it, even if they're not in the board. You can go back to your organization, you will see such people. They don't have an official position, but they have an influence. Simply because they felt that, look, if we make this decision without this guy giving his inputs, I think I'm in trouble. Right? Or at least saying, look, if I make this decision without this guy taking out an action item and execution out of it, then I'm going to be in trouble. Either ways. But, he's that pain in that part of the body, just get him. That's fine with us, but we need to be there.
Okay, Sundar, one last question from Anjali.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Anjali from CGI, and we're just beginning this journey of getting communications to be part of those strategic meetings, right? And you guys seem to have got it figured out, and you're doing it. How long would it take to get there? Like, is this evolution of just starting to have your voice heard at these strategic meetings to the point where your MD is saying, yes, it's important to have my comms person at every meeting. That's one. The other part of it is, if you are spending all your time in these meetings, the work's not getting done, and then you have to make the case to hire people, but you can't make the case until you've shown the value that you're adding. So it's this, it's a cycle that, how do you break that?
See, first of all, we've not figured it out completely because we still don't have our chief marketing officer on the board. So we'll wait, and I'll report back to you saying that we've done it. So we'll take a time. We're still on our way, but I think you're right. We have gone on that journey in a fairly matured way. Now, but coming back to the question, how long does it take? It's very difficult to answer that. But I would say that if you do it in a systematic manner, about 6 months to a year should be a good time, because then you're able to show the performance over one business cycle. The second thing is, we're very afraid of asking something, right? If you want, let's say there's a leadership council, every unit has a leadership council. Go talk to your CEO when you feel the right time is right and say, look, I want to be a part of the leadership council. What's your problem? I'm telling you, it will be very difficult for him to answer that question. One. Second, he may not be prepared at that time. You may not be prepared at that time. But end of the next period, he knows, hey, this person is ambitious. I think she's confident of being on the leadership, because it takes something to go to the CEO and tell him, look, I want this job. Right? I think if these signals are very important, and I think as a function, we don't do it. We don't do it enough.
Yep.
We're very happy being -1 all the time.
Sundar, if I can add, it's really not important to take the seat at the table if you don't have a voice at the table.
Yeah.
So there are two different things.
All right.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause.
Thank you.
You gave another meaning to do you count.
Yeah,
All right.
Just one thing, tomorrow is Marty's Day, right? And we don't want to be that, right? at the pedestal of corporates, right? So next time when we meet, like to see how we progressed on that and how we can all really claim our position in the corporation. Yeah? Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Sundar's got a flight to catch, so if anybody wants to get in touch with Sundar, connect with Sundar, just write to me. I would do the honors. Hold on, Sundar, you're not done yet. I would like to call upon on stage Mr. Purushottam, Regional Director for Tamil Nadu and Kerala for NASCOM, to present a small token of our appreciation to Sundar.
Really honored.
Come on.
She's good. She's very energetic.
Yeah.
She does a lot of work here.
I'm giving the mic to Puru. There is something that's happening in Bangalore today. Puru, a minute.
Anyway, I was on both the sides. I was a journalist, business journalist. Then I was handling communications for Hyundai for 6 years. So both the sides, now for the last 7 years with Hyundai, with NASCOM. So, now I use effectively the communication process in terms of planting the stories, whichever way I want to get things done from the government. So that's a different story. I'm here to market something. We are doing a roadshow for Calicut, which is a city 5.5 hours from here in Kerala. So the government of Kerala is here. They would like to meet up with you all, evening 7. Actually, probably we had this planned maybe 2 weeks back. So it's going to happen at Leela here by 7 in the evening, showcasing some of the beautiful city called Calicut, some of the beautiful IT parks in Calicut.
Santosh did his engineering there.
Yeah, okay, from NIT, is it? So yeah, so we would like you to join us. It's by 7 to 8, 8:30, followed by a dinner. Look forward to see you people who are interested in looking at our city in Kerala. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Puru.